All right, welcome everyone. What I wanted to talk to you about today was books that are disturbing, right? Horror books or just books in general. This list that I have here are mostly horror books, but books that really just kind of can get under your skin, or while you're reading it, you're just the whole time your stomach is kind of churning or your skin is just crawling. And it's funny, I had a comment on one of my videos recently, and I appreciate the consistency from Music Room 7185. And this particular person had told me, and I actually kind of got the idea for this video based off that comment, that they've read a bunch of books that have been disturbing, and they don't want to read them again because they don't want to go back to that place, right? And so now they're at a point to where, as they get older, they want to read books that really just entertain them as opposed to disturbing them. But had mentioned that some people just enjoy the disturbing books intensely, and I'm one of those people right now to where if a book is going to make me feel something like that, to where I'm going to be disturbed, it's going to be something that I find is a valuable read. Because if words on a page can make you feel that way, then you're reading something of value in terms of the way I see it. Because I remember watching an episode of Friends, and Joey had put The Shining in the freezer because he thought it was too scary when he was reading it, and he just thought that that'd be a safe place for it. And I just remember thinking, like, that's ridiculous. Like, how can a book make you do that or make you feel that afraid? You're just reading words. Until I started reading and I read some of these books, and it did that to me. And to me, it's just, if a book is going to take you to that place, I think that the author did a really good job. Now, what I don't look for is just, I don't look for people who, or art or anything, whether it's TV shows or reading, to where it's just kind of thrown in there to try to disturb people, and it's sloppy and it's not well thought out. I feel like the reason why these books are disturbing, and the reason why it takes you to that kind of place, is that it's scenarios of things that like actually could happen, or if they couldn't happen and it's a little bit more supernatural, the way that the characters are feeling about their loved ones, or like what's happening to the loved ones, the way that it's being written and described is so disturbing and really hits you, in your gut. That's the real difference. I'm not looking for, like, when you're watching a movie and people are just swearing for the sake of it and it's corny, or you're watching a comedian and they're just making fart jokes and it's not, and it's not well thought out and it's not funny. It's the same with books. Like, if it was just kind of thrown in there and it seemed like it was sloppy and not well thought out, or not well done, then I'm not interested. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the real human stuff. And as I get going, I think I think you might understand what I'm talking about. But number one on this list, really, I would have to say, is Pet Sematary. And I've brought this up in some of my other books. In some of my other videos, in talking about these books. And this is the first one that kind of broke the glass on that thinking of, like, how can reading something actually do that to you? How can it actually make you feel scared or feel something like that? And Pet Sematary is what did that for me. It didn't make me feel scared, but I had to put this book down and walk around my apartment a little bit. I joke with people about how it made me want to take a cold shower in the dark. And I could have been in there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, just sitting there in the cold and in the dark, just thinking about what I had just read. Because Pet Sematary is extremely disturbing, especially, towards the end, and what goes down with this family, and what the father goes through, and the feelings that he's having, really what this is about. And I was reluctant to read this at first because I thought, pets that just kind of come alive out of a cemetery. That's what I thought it was about. People just buried their pets and then they came alive and attacked, a town, is what I assumed. And that's not what it is at all. It's actually about a couple that moves to Maine because the dad is a teacher. The dad is a doctor. And he gets assigned to a university to be the head of medical at this place, the head doctor. And they're renting out this house, and they've got two kids, and there's this road to where this there's some sort of industrial plant or something up the street, to where these trucks just keep rushing down the road. And they're always flying by. And one of the neighbors across the road warns them, like, hey, don't let your kids run out on the road because they don't slow down. Like, these trucks are coming all the time. So make sure that you just watch everything, because people lose pets, people lose everything on this street constantly. And so these people are, just moving into this town. that's kind of some foreshadowing, into what goes on in the book. But then also, they meet this neighbor across the road, this old guy who's been in town forever. And they had seen these kids walking this pathway that kind of goes through their property, to this cemetery that the kids have called the Pet Cemetery, which is why it's written wrong on the book. And some wild stuff just goes down in this book from there. I don't want this to be a spoiler review, this particular review. I'm going to do a full review on Pet Cemetery at some point, and on all these books that I talk about, and there might be some spoilers in that. But Pet Cemetery is awesome. It's disturbing in the best way possible. Definitely will read this at one point. It's probably one of my favorite Stephen King books that I've read so far. I have another copy of it as well, because I started collecting both hardcover and paperbacks if I see cool covers. And this one, I read that hardcover that I had pulled up right here. This is the copy that I actually read, and then I saw this online, and I just had to get it. I mean, it just looks like this old, 80s type cover, super terrifying, super scary, and I think it's really cool. I don't know. I love collecting the different covers, even if it's something that I just got to use as display, or maybe when I do a reread, now I have a nice paperback that I can kind of beat up a little bit. All right, now number 2, the second book that was like, wow, where I really had to put it down and not read it for a second, walk around my apartment, think about what I was reading. I was raised as a Catholic, and even though I'm not really a practicing Catholic, I am. I read a book like this, and just the blasphemy. Just the blasphemy in this is just insane. And The Exorcist is one of those books that is, one, super recognizable and super popular. A lot of people have heard about the movie. It is based on a novel, and honestly, the movie and the novel are almost identical, minus a few things, obviously, because the movie can't get to every place. But it's a very faithful adaptation, and it's very, very good, and that's very scary in its own right. But man, oh man, this is about a mother-daughter, right? The mother's a movie star, and the daughter gets possessed by a demon. And they obviously don't know what's going on, because that sounds ridiculous, right? It's really based in a lot of reality here. It's not a Stephen King book to where you kind of expect that there's going to be like the mystical, right? So this is kind of a story to where it's in the real world, and this little girl gets possessed, and they're trying to figure out why. They bring in doctors, they bring in a whole bunch of people, and then eventually they bring in church folk. They bring in a priest, and just the things that the demon says and the things that it does and makes the little girl do is just unreal to read, and just really made my skin crawl. And again, I was like, wow, what blasphemy, and that's coming from somebody who's not a practicing, super devout, Catholic person. And this was really like, holy shit, man, they really went really far with this. But again, it's in the best way possible. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read, but definitely one of the most terrifying. I'm not sure if it's more disturbing than Pet Sematary, but it's really close. It's really close. And that brings me to, again, I'm just getting this reading journey started, and last year I read 15 novels and a bunch of short stories. I could go through some of those too at some point, because there was a few of those that were really disturbing. But I'm just getting started on this journey. And so throughout all of the novels that I've read, I'm not strictly reading horror and disturbing books. It is one that I'm going to review and add to another list again when I go back and do a reread, because with it, that was the first book that I had picked up, and it was, I think, around 2018 when the movie came out. And I was really interested in trying to get into something else, to do with my free time. And reading was something that was interesting to me. So I grabbed it and I started reading it, and I read half of it. And for whatever reason, I just kind of stopped reading again for a couple of years, and I put it down halfway through. And so now I just want to go back and reread it. But I bet that it would be on this list. I don't want to put it there yet. But in terms of like the most disturbing books that I've read, the top 2 are the ones that I just mentioned. But I wanted to mention one that I'm reading right now, because I only have a quarter of it left. And I've brought it up a few times on the channel as I'm reading it, just because it's been such a good read, but it's a very disturbing one, and that is Gerald's Game. Okay. Now, again, I have not finished this one yet, but I think it's worth talking about on this episode, just because just because there's some really tough stuff in this. Okay, very, very tough stuff. And it might be even harder to read than some of the things that were in Pet Cemetery and The Exorcist, because this happens to like a real person. And I don't want to spoil it. Gerald's Game is about a couple, okay, who goes off to their lake house in October. So it's off season. So a lot of people who have their lake houses are back at their regular homes. They're not at their summer home. So there's really no neighbors around. They just kind of wanted to go out for the day. They're having trouble in their marriage, so they're trying to rekindle things. And Gerald has the idea of handcuffing her to the bedpost, which they have done before. They've done these like kinky scenarios before, and he wanted to do it again. The only problem is that when he does it, and this is all at the beginning, this is the premise of the book, so it's not really a spoiler, but when he does it, he has a heart attack and he dies. And so she's handcuffed to this bed in the middle of in the middle of October, out on a lake where there's no one else around, or at least, it's perceived that there's no one else around. And she's trapped. She's trapped. No one can hear her scream. And also the door to the house is not only just unlocked, but it's one of those like screen doors that kind of blows in the wind, and it's just kind of able to be pushed open. And so things happen, and she's strapped to this bed, and she starts going nuts. A lot of the book is really just in her head, her having conversations with with herself, and just losing her mind. And as she does that, she starts to remember things from the past, and that's when it starts to get just really sad and just really, really tugs at your heart. And I mean, honestly, like I this book is not like super long. I think it's only like 400 pages, and it's one where it took me a few days just to get through a few chapters, and the chapters aren't very long either. And it's just because I was like, oh man, like are we continuing on with this really? And yeah, it's one of those things though where I'm thinking like the only way out is through, like continuing to drag it out and just like go, oh my gosh, I don't want to read any more of that. And then there's more of it, and you just keep going. I just, I should just sit down and decide to just like sit and read and go, okay, this is what we're reading right now. And based on me, the way that I say that, I know it sounds like, oh, well, maybe you're not really enjoying it. And that's not the case. I am. I really think actually that once I finish this, when I add it to my tier list, I think it's going to go straight to the top. Now, it's not going to be the top book, but it's going to be in the top tier. I'm really, really enjoying Gerald's Game, and it has a sister book that I have in the pipeline as well. And I had mentioned in a video that I wasn't sure if I was going to do books that I plan on reading in the future this year, but I think that I need to add a few of these because I'm definitely going to read these. And they're both books that Music Room had mentioned in the comments. But Dolores Claiborne, and this is a sister book to Gerald's Game, came out the same year. And when I was reading reviews on these books, actually Dolores Claiborne is the one I was interested in first, because apparently it's just a manuscript of a crime that she committed, and she's just telling her story on why it happened, and there's no chapters. It's just basically her talking to the cops. And I thought that was a super cool concept, but I was told that you need to read Gerald's Game first, or at least I read that. I guess it's not super necessary, but as I'm reading Gerald's Game, I'm realizing that it is. There's a connection to these two books, and it's going to make more sense with Dolores Claiborne after I finish Gerald's Game. Based on how much I'm enjoying Gerald's Game, just based on the content, I think it's going to be a back-to-back. I think I'm going to go right from Gerald's Game to Dolores Claiborne once I finish that. And then also another one that's been on the pipeline for me, which I've had this for like a year. It's just I have so many movie books that I've been reading, and I like to switch from, I don't want to read just all movie stories that I kind of know the concept of the story on. I like to switch it up and add some things that I have no clue who the characters are. But this is one that I've just been excited about, and it's supposed to be one of the best Stephen King books that has ever, been written. And a lot of people have this at the top of their list, at least in the top 3. And that's Misery. Okay. And Misery, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie, that was actually directed by Rob Reiner. But Misery is about an author. Big surprise, Stephen King writing about an author, but an author who has a crazy fan. And he's out, writing this book, a popular character that, he's developed called Misery, and it's a series. And he feels like he's kind of trapped writing about this character because it's the one that's kind of brought him all the fame and money, and it's what his publishers want him to keep doing. But he feels pretty much done with the character Misery, and so he writes it in a way to where Misery is going to be no more, and that's the end of the series. And he gets into this accident when he's out in a cabin writing this. There's this big snowstorm when he's driving around, and he crashes, and this crazy fan finds him, and she nurses him back to health, or at least that's what she's nursing back to health. But she takes him to her cabin out in the middle of nowhere, reads the manuscript that he has written, or the rough copy that he's written of the final book, hates the direction that he's taking the character, and a bunch of chaos ensues. Okay, remember, he's in the middle of the nowhere, stuck with this crazy fan. Now, I haven't read the book yet, so the synopsis that I just gave is based off the movie, but I think that they're pretty similar. And so if there's anything that I said that's a little bit different from in here, please forgive me. That is one that I'm planning on reading, and I'm very excited about, because it's supposed to be very, very good. And I really did enjoy the movie, so I'm very excited for that. So when you're reading books, if you're one of those psychos like me that likes the disturbing kind of, just the disturbing, nature of certain stories, authors who are able to take you to that place, who are really able to accomplish it. I think maybe that's what it is that since they're able to actually accomplish that and make someone feel something like that and be disturbed through reading, that is very powerful. And so I just wanted to give you, a synopsis on that, my thoughts on that. I wanted to thank you again, Music Room, for giving me that idea, just in the comments. And yeah. Let me know if there's any other books, based off this that I should check out, because again, I really do like this horror, this horror genre, especially when it can do the things that I had described that these books do. And I will see you next time.